story of the week, as far as I'm concerned. I've just been absolutely stunned by this story. The Met Police have apologised for causing further offence with an apology about an officer's use of the term openly Jewish to an anti-Semitism campaigner who was near a pro-Palestinian march.
You are quite openly Jewish. This is a pro-Palestinian march. I'm not accusing you of anything, but I'm worried about the reaction to your presence.
In any case, the chief executive of a campaign against anti-Semitism was wearing a kippah skull cap when he was stopped from crossing a road near the demonstration in London last Saturday. I'm appalled by this story. Joining me now is political commentator Kai Wilshaw and broadcaster and journalist Mike Parry. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me, both looking incredibly dapper. I have to say, Kai, looking very dapper today. Now, I was genuinely shocked by this story. I mean, so looking openly Jewish, I mean, I know he's wearing the skull cap, but openly Jewish in London is reason for a copper to stop you and have words with you.
It left me cold, so I can only imagine what British Jews are feeling at the minute. It is outrageous, and it will beg lots of questions about what does this actually mean? Why does he feel empowered to do this? Well, the answer is, of course, that I think there's rising intolerance in a number of the protests that we've seen recently. But the police are also, they're treading a fine line, aren't they? They're between a rock and a hard place in some senses, because on the one hand, they want to allow people to peacefully protest.
Of course,
knowing,
we all do.
Absolutely, but knowing, of course, that some of these protests have gone out of hand, so they want to also protect public safety. And there's huge political pressure and lots of eyes on them. After Rishi Sunak made that speech outside 10 Downing Street, it shows just how difficult their situation is as well.
But I mean, the problem with this is, I mean, you know, obviously, the police were obviously trying to make sure the peace was kept. There were no problems, so they were trying to keep, you know, what's this chap's name again? Gideon Falter safe. They were trying to keep him safe. So I understand that. But by also trying to keep him safe, they were also being anti-Semitic at the same time. Mike, the one thing you're old enough to remember as well, back in the 1970s when the National Front were marching...
Yes, absolutely.
And they were banned for being racist and anti-Semitic and all that.
Yeah.
No problem whatsoever. So why are the pro-Palestinian marches still allowed to go on and still allowed to spout, frankly, still very anti-Semitic sentiments?
I so totally agree with you. I mean, you are openly Jewish... a statement from a policeman, that's like an accusation. Do you see what I mean? You know, I'm saying, you're openly Jewish. Oh, do you mean I shouldn't be here? Gideon lives in London, so it's his hometown. He was merely exercising the right to walk the pavements of London. And I wonder whether, if that policeman had gone up to somebody who was of Asian appearance and said, you are Islamic, you know, or you're openly Islamic.
You look like you might be a bit Hamas.
What sort of reaction we'd have had then? Supposing, for instance, he'd said, you are openly a member of the travelling community. It's hitting out at minority groups in a most despicable way, because the police in London and across the United Kingdom are there to defend everybody's rights. And if people do want to march, and I personally think they've been very lenient in the amount of verbosity they've allowed within the marches through London every weekend, instilling fear to other parts of the community. They don't clamp down on them. They don't clamp down on the, you know, River to the Sea chants, and yet they really, to my mind, pick on a guy because he's wearing a kippah, which makes him look Jewish. And you know, for years, for decades now, we've been told London's the most diverse city in the world. People have come from all over the world to be in London because it's tolerant and it's diverse. But that's not tolerant. And later, of course, an assistant commissioner of the Metropolitan Police doubled down on the mistake that the cop on the beat had made and made it even worse, and they had to withdraw both statements. So that's another issue here, Dawn. I don't think the police are fully qualified and fully understand their role on the streets of London.
They have. Now, to be fair, they have apologised. They've
apologised twice.
Yeah, they have apologised twice. The first one was a bad apology. But, you know, they have said, you know, the use of the term openly Jewish by one of our officers is hugely regrettable. That's putting it mildly, by the way.
Yeah.
But do you think now, Kai, that we have to accept that we do have two-tier policing?
I think there is a double standard, and I think it's now a political problem. After this double apology, as Mike says, it's become an issue for politicians to answer what now. And I don't think the answer is that we clamp down on protests at all. I think that would be regrettable indeed. But we do have to have a conversation around diversity and around how minority communities are protected. Because, yes, as Mike says, we've been told again and again that not only that London is the most diverse city, it welcomes people from everywhere, but that is de facto a good thing. I think there does need to be a conversation about how we integrate all these different communities.
The other problem with this two-tier policing is the fact that the Jewish community are one of the most integrated into our society.
And one of the smallest. There's only 250,000 people in this country. I mean, again, to me, it's the weakness of politicians. If the politicians who run this country, and that's the Conservative one at the moment, had made it clear where the acceptable lines of protest are, where the acceptable lines of mixing with other communities is before you put a foot wrong, we'd know more about it. But young policemen, because policemen these days don't have the experience that policemen 30 years ago had, because they're sometimes recruited on the fast track scheme. So they haven't had the street nous and gather the street nous. And young policemen are having to interpret the acceptability rules whilst they're out there on the beat. If you don't mind me saying, just for a moment, please, Dawn, Suella Braverman summed it up to me. She said, it's not right that one group of people cannot exercise their rights to enjoy London peacefully in order to allow another group to express their hatred. I think that sums it up very well. But somebody should have said that from the Home Office a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't see how it's got to this point either, because these protests have been going on since October, right? And they're going on pretty much every weekend in London and then in other cities.
Costing millions of pounds as well.
So where was that training? Where was that training for police officers?
I totally agree.
The way the wind is blowing, because I think the worry at the minute is this incident, horrifying, very regrettable, as the police said, as Dawn says, to put it mildly. But where's this going to go? I mean, I'm quite worried that something's going to happen that we could have seen coming a mile off. We've done nothing to stop.
I think in any other country something would have happened by now, but we're a very tolerant country, and unfortunately those who are of an extreme nature take advantage of our tolerance and our civilised will, you know?
Unfortunately, I'm going to be very civilised, and I should have a very civilised manner to shut up. We've run out of time on that one, but it's a very, very strong story, so let us know what you think on this. Really, really keen to know your thoughts on this one. As you've heard what we say, what do you think? Now, the Met Police have released an initial statement saying, in recent weeks we've seen a trend emerge with those opposed to the main protest appearing along the route to express their views. The fact that those often film themselves while doing so suggests they must know their presence is provocative, that they're inviting response, and that they're increasing the likelihood of an altercation. They then deleted the first and released a fresh one, saying, we have reflected on the strength of the response to our previous statement in an effort to make a point about the policing of protests we called further offence. This was never our intention. We have removed that statement and we apologise. Being Jewish is not a provocation. Jewish Londoners must be able to feel safe in this city. Well, let me know if you do.